Buckingham Palace. The name itself conjures images of fairy tale weddings, stoic guards, and a family whose lives are as meticulously curated as the priceless art adorning their walls. But behind those gilded gates, beneath the veneer of tradition and duty, lies a world of complex relationships, simmering resentments, and power struggles that would make even the most seasoned political operative blush. And recently, that world has been rocked by a seismic shift, a family feud so intense it reportedly left King Charles himself in tears. The catalyst? A demand, delivered with unwavering conviction by two of the most influential figures in the royal family, Prince William and Princess Anne. Their ultimatum was simple yet devastating: sever all ties with Queen Camilla's family. Not a gradual distancing, not a polite decline of invitations, but a clean, decisive break, a line drawn in the sand with the weight of centuries of royal precedent behind it. To understand the magnitude of this demand, you have to understand the delicate dance that Camilla has been performing since her marriage to Charles. For decades, she was the outsider, the woman blamed for the breakdown of a fairy tale marriage, forever in the shadow of the beloved Princess Diana. Her journey from public pariah to Queen Consort has been a masterclass in image rehabilitation, a slow, painstaking process of winning over a skeptical public and earning the respect of the royal establishment. And part of that rehabilitation involved quietly integrating her children, Laura Lopes and Tom Parker Bowles, into the royal fold. Not as official members, mind you, but as welcomed guests, attending major royal events, mingling with the family, and seemingly finding their place within the complex ecosystem of the monarchy. Their presence was a visual representation of Camilla's acceptance, a sign that she had finally, truly been embraced by the institution. But William and Anne's demand throws all of that into chaos. It rips apart the carefully constructed facade of unity and exposes the raw, uncomfortable truth that some wounds never fully heal, and that the past has a way of resurfacing when you least expect it. It's a stark reminder that blood is thicker than water, and that in the ruthless world of royalty, loyalty to the crown trumps personal relationships every time. The emotional toll on King Charles must be immense. He's caught between his devotion to his wife, the woman who stood by him through thick and thin, and his duty to his sons and daughters, the future of the monarchy. He's forced to choose between personal happiness and the preservation of an institution that has defined his life. It's a no-win situation, a Sophie's choice of royal proportions. And what of Camilla herself? After decades of fighting for her place, she now faces the prospect of seeing her children cast back into the shadows, deemed unworthy of association with the royal family. It's a cruel blow, a stinging rejection that threatens to undo all the progress she has made. You can only imagine the conversations taking place behind closed doors, the tears, the recriminations, the desperate pleas for understanding. But this isn't just about hurt feelings and family drama. This is about the future of the monarchy. William and Anne are not acting out of personal spite. They are acting out of a deep-seated conviction that the monarchy must be protected at all costs. They see Camilla's family as a potential liability, a threat to the integrity of the institution. They believe that the line between royal duty and personal privilege must be clearly defined, and that any blurring of that line could have disastrous consequences. Their actions are a calculated move, a strategic maneuver designed to safeguard the crown for future generations. It's a ruthless decision, perhaps, but one that they believe is necessary to ensure the survival of the monarchy in an increasingly uncertain world. The question now is, how will King Charles respond? Will he cave to the pressure from William and Anne, sacrificing his wife's happiness for the sake of the crown? Or will he stand his ground, risking a further rift within the family and potentially jeopardizing the future of the monarchy? The answer to that question will determine not only the fate of Camilla's family, but also the direction of the royal family for years to come. The initial palace statement, while seemingly innocuous, was a carefully crafted piece of PR, designed to appease the public while masking the deep fissures within the royal family. It spoke of protecting the monarchy's integrity, a phrase so vague it could mean almost anything. But the devil, as always, was in the details, or rather, in what was deliberately omitted. The absence of any mention of Laura Lopes and Tom Parker Bowles was a deafening silence, a clear indication that their days within the royal circle were numbered. For Camilla, this was a devastating blow. She had weathered years of public scorn, patiently chipping away at the wall of resentment that surrounded her. She had finally earned a measure of acceptance not just for herself, but for her children as well. To see them now cast aside, deemed unfit to associate with the royal family, was a cruel and unjust punishment. The public reaction was swift and predictable. Social media exploded with opinions ranging from outrage to vindication. The hashtag number Diana would be proud trended worldwide, a stark reminder of the enduring power of the late princess's legacy. For many, William and Anne's actions were a long overdue correction, a restoration of the natural order. The irony, of course, is that Charles, often criticized for his perceived weakness and indecisiveness, was now being praised for a decision that ultimately highlighted the consequences of his past choices. The sidelining of Camilla's family was both a restoration and a reckoning, a tacit admission that Diana's shadow still loomed large over the throne. Princess Anne, ever the pragmatist, saw the situation with characteristic clarity. She had long been uneasy with the increasing visibility of Camilla's children at royal events. To Anne, it was a matter of principle, a violation of the unspoken rules that had governed the monarchy for centuries. It wasn't personal animosity. It was about bloodlines, heritage, and the sanctity of tradition. Her private meeting with Charles was a turning point. Her words, "You are the king, you are your mother's son," were a powerful reminder of his duty, his responsibility to uphold the traditions of the monarchy, even if it meant sacrificing personal happiness. Camilla, meanwhile, was fighting a desperate battle behind the scenes. She pleaded with Charles to reconsider, arguing that her children had never sought titles or power, that all they wanted was to belong. But her pleas fell on deaf ears. The machinery of the monarchy had been set in motion, and there was no stopping it. Then came the leak, a single document that exposed the extent of Camilla's efforts to integrate her children into the royal system. The document, discovered in the Duchy of Cornwall archives, outlined plans to appoint Laura Lopes as a trustee of royal estates and historic treasures. It was a bombshell, confirming long-held suspicions that Camilla had been quietly maneuvering to secure her family's future within the monarchy. For Charles, the revelation was a betrayal. He had believed that personal loyalty and royal duty were separate, but the document revealed that those lines had been blurred. He was faced with an impossible choice: protect his wife or protect the crown. In the end, he chose the crown. A new trust protocol was quietly implemented, placing all matters of estate management, financial authority, and ceremonial influence firmly in the hands of the direct heirs to the throne, William and his children, George and Charlotte. Camilla's influence began to wane. Public engagements were canceled, her presence at royal events became increasingly rare, and her once close relationship with Charles grew distant and strained. The Queen Consort was fading into the background, a victim of the ruthless power plays that defined life behind the gilded gates of Buckingham Palace. The 7 words Charles penned to Camilla, "I had no choice. History required it," were less a declaration of love lost and more an epitaph for a reign subtly, irrevocably altered. It was the kind of cold calculation that keeps crowns firmly planted, but leaves hearts shattered in the process. A gilded cage is still a cage, no matter how many priceless paintings adorn the walls. William, ever mindful of his future role, stepped seamlessly into the vacuum. He possessed the common touch his father often lacked, a natural ease with the public that translated into soaring approval ratings. Kate, his ever stylish and poised partner, became the monarchy's brightest star, a modern-day Diana without the tragic baggage. They were the fresh-faced future, the antidote to decades of scandal and intrigue. Anne, meanwhile, resumed her position as the steadfast anchor, the no-nonsense royal who embodied duty and tradition. She was the quiet force, the one who understood the intricate workings of the institution, the one who could be relied upon to make the tough decisions, no matter how unpopular. She was the queen the monarchy needed, even if she never wore the crown. Camilla retreated to Mill, her private sanctuary in the countryside. The whispers followed her, of course. Some pitied her, casting her as the wronged woman, the victim of royal machinations. Others vilified her, accusing her of power grabs and social climbing. But mostly, she was forgotten, relegated to the footnotes of history. Laura and Tom, once welcome guests at palace events, vanished from the society pages. Their brief flirtation with royal life was over, their dreams of acceptance dashed. They were back where they started, on the outside looking in, forever marked by their mother's ambition and ultimate downfall. The monarchy, however, marched on, seemingly unscathed by the turmoil. The carefully orchestrated transition had been a success, a masterclass in damage control. The public, weary of drama and scandal, embraced the new order, eager to believe in the fairy tale once again. But beneath the surface, the scars remained. Charles, haunted by his decision, grew increasingly isolated, his reign defined by a sense of melancholy and regret. He had saved the monarchy, perhaps, but at what cost? Had he sacrificed his own happiness, his own integrity, for the sake of an institution that seemed increasingly out of touch with the modern world? William, burdened by the weight of expectation, struggled to reconcile his public persona with his private doubts. He was the future king, the symbol of hope and renewal, but he also carried the burden of his family's past, the knowledge of the sacrifices that had been made, the betrayals that had been committed. Anne, ever the pragmatist, remained focused on the task at hand, determined to steer the monarchy through the turbulent waters of the 21st century. But even she couldn't shake the feeling that something had been lost, that the soul of the institution had been compromised in the name of survival. And Camilla, in her quiet exile, could only reflect on the choices she had made, the dreams she had pursued, and the price she had paid. She had come so close to rewriting history, to securing her place in the royal narrative, but in the end, she had been outmaneuvered, outmatched, and ultimately out of time. The crown, it seemed, was a prize that could only be won by those born into its orbit, not those who dared to reach for it from the outside. The weight of the crown, it turns out, is not just measured in jewels and gold, but in the crushing pressure of public perception. William, lauded for his modern approach, found himself trapped by the very image he cultivated. Every handshake scrutinized, every charity appearance dissected, every family photograph analyzed for hidden meanings. The endless performance took its toll. The easy smiles felt strained, the genuine warmth replaced by a practiced politeness. The people wanted a prince, a relatable royal, but the institution demanded a king in waiting. A stoic figurehead prepared to shoulder the burdens of 1,000 years of history. Kate, once the darling of the press, faced her own challenges. The fairy tale narrative, so carefully constructed, began to fray at the edges. The relentless spotlight revealed not a princess, but a woman juggling the demands of motherhood, marriage, and royal duty. The pressure to be perfect, to embody the ideal of the modern royal, proved suffocating. The smiles became less frequent, the public appearances less enthusiastic. The magic, it seemed, was fading. Charles, watching from the sidelines, felt a pang of guilt. He had placed his son on a pedestal, expecting him to effortlessly navigate the treacherous currents of royal life. He had failed to prepare him for the sacrifices, the compromises, the constant scrutiny that came with the crown. He saw the weariness in William's eyes, the forced smiles, the growing distance between him and Kate. He knew that the fairy tale was crumbling, and he felt powerless to stop it. Anne, ever the pragmatist, offered a different perspective. She saw William's struggles not as a failure, but as a learning experience. She knew that the monarchy was a constantly evolving institution, and that each generation had to find its own way to navigate the challenges of the time. She urged William to embrace his own instincts, to find his own voice, to connect with the public on a deeper level. She reminded him that the crown was not just a symbol of power, but a symbol of service, a responsibility to the people. Meanwhile, in her quiet exile, Camilla found a measure of peace. The absence of public scrutiny allowed her to reconnect with her family, to rediscover the simple joys of life. She spent her days gardening, reading, and spending time with her grandchildren. She learned to let go of the past, to accept the choices she had made, and to find contentment in the present. The whispers still followed her, but they no longer held the same sting. She had survived the storm, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Laura and Tom, freed from the constraints of royal expectations, forged their own paths. Laura continued her work as a curator, quietly championing the arts and preserving cultural heritage. Tom pursued his passion for food, writing cookbooks and hosting culinary events. They remained close to their mother, offering her love and support, and they found fulfillment in their own lives, far from the gilded cages of Buckingham Palace. The monarchy, meanwhile, continued its slow but steady evolution. William, guided by Anne's wisdom and his own growing self-awareness, began to carve out his own identity as a future king. He embraced his role as a champion of mental health, speaking openly about his own struggles and encouraging others to seek help. He He became a vocal advocate for environmental protection, using his platform to raise awareness about the climate crisis. He found his voice, and the public responded with renewed enthusiasm. Kate, inspired by William's courage, began to focus on her own passions. She became a patron of children's charities working to improve the lives of vulnerable young people. She used her platform to promote early childhood education, recognizing the importance of providing children with the best possible start in life. She found her purpose and the magic returned. The monarchy was not a fairy tale, but it was a story worth telling. It was a story of duty, sacrifice, and resilience. It was a story of flawed individuals striving to do their best in the face of extraordinary challenges. It was a story of an ancient institution adapting to the demands of the modern world. And it was a story that was far from over. The final chapter, as always, remained unwritten, waiting to be shaped by the choices of those who wore the crown.